to do something different because we're not addressing and helping people in the ways that we used to. You know, we can all reminisce like me and Bob and Daryl were doing about the good old days of being at Will Wisp and being, 100 people there, and it was a great time. And
I go back to Sunny Looks.
You go way back, and I went to Sunny Looks.
Yeah.
I was at Sunny Looks. My dad took me there in the '70s. So anyway, I grew up under a house, as the old saying goes. But anyway, it was something that we recognized there had to be a drastic change that needed to occur. TPCA was spread out way too much. We had way too many meetings, and none of them, I think, were helping people in the way that I think that we're trying to change the focus now. So as we know, we went from umpteen board members across the state to only 4, so we have region directors. I was the at-large member or director last year, and this year I came on as the secretary. But it was something that what I see now is a very small core group of people that are very focused in trying to make positive changes to hopefully provide something that members of the pest control industry are looking for. So probably one of the biggest things that we look for is to hopefully keep a heartbeat on what legislation is doing and making sure no bad laws come through. We've got that. And then the other is, keep us kind of informed about what's going on in our industry when it comes time to getting some quality education and being able to see what's new in the industry. Be focused on that, and that's kind of where the direction is going now. So TPCA now is only having one event a year, Pest Expo, which it will be in one place every year, which is in July, I think. TexasPest.org, you can get all of that.
You know what it's going to be this year?
Yes, I do. And it's the same place it'll be every year, which is Fort Worth Convention Center, the Stockyards Convention Center. Is last year was our first one that we did. We had over 40 vendors. We had over 250 attendees at that conference.
Good.
It was, I would say, it almost comparatively to a mini Pest World in the aspect of all the offerings that were there. Great quality speakers, great vendor offerings there, so far as being able to see what's out there, to be able to put your hands on stuff. And the reason, how many of y'all been to Pest Worlds before? So if y'all haven't been to Pest Worlds, some have, some haven't, it's a spectacle. It is literally a convention center size in the, everybody's all about going to the exhibition hall where all the vendors are. It is hundreds and hundreds of people. It's amazing. I know Target has a big, giant, booth there every year. So it is a way to kind of look at what's out there, what's new, and such. And when I saw, and again, last year was the first time we did it. It just blew me away how big it was. And when all of the vendors saw it and we had an after meeting with all the vendors, they were blown away. So I will tell you, it's a great event, and I would encourage y'all. You know, if you can't go to a Pest World, go to Pest Expo. Get a taste of it. So, we are a small core group of people, and we need to, you know, keep up with what's out there. And, you know, probably the biggest things when it comes to going to association meetings, it's not so much, you know, the guy standing up sometimes. What is it, Bob?
It's the guys around you.
Exactly. It's being able to talk to a guy at a table, talk to a guy next to you about, hey, I've got a problem with this. What do you do? And if you're like just about every guy at those meetings, we're happy to share with you what we do, because we always know that I might not have the answer, but you might, or this other guy next to you. So it's a deal that, and we also know there's no one right answer, because sometimes I keep looking for things, because what they say is the right answer might not be the best way for me to do it with my company size. So it's something that allows you to get an amalgam of information to help you, you know, with your business and how you do things. So that's a quick update on that. It's a deal that I will also say that I know that it's a much smaller core of people in the TPCA, but you are very well represented in Houston. So I'm the secretary. Dell is, I think, the vice president, and then Brian Mellis is the region director that y'all are in. So you're very well represented down here, which is the way it should be. Okay. You know, we're the biggest area. So anyway, it's a deal that if y'all ever have any suggestions or anything, any questions about TPCA, by all means, come to me, come to Dell, come to Brian, and we'll help in any way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's talk some rats. So I'm going to kind of walk through this. I'm also a member of NACOA. If y'all don't know, that's the National Wildlife Control Operators Association. It's a great association if you want to know wildlife and such. So I gave this talk last year at their National Expo, and so they're really good. The wildlife group is really good at four-legged critters, you know, and I'm talking about the bigger ones, but they're not so good at the smaller ones like roof rats and such. So anyway, roof rats are kind of an elusive you know, rodent that we all deal with. You know, for the most part, in the Houston area, that's, when it comes to rats, that's the main thing we have. There's a few pockets of Norways. You know, I've got some car dealerships that I deal with that always get Norways at the dumpsters. Lexus of Clear Lake and Sterling McCall Toyota and Mercedes dealership down the road. If there's a Norway, I know where to go. It's at the dumpster. And so, you know, truthfully, I've dealt with both, and I've been doing this for 40 plus years now, and it's something that if I had to pick between one, because one is easier to deal with, to me it's Norways. Norways to me are much easier to work with than roof rats. because roof rats have the added climbing thing that is our nemesis, because we always have to worry about where are they climbing up from. So, you know, I'm not going to get real big into the biology, but you know, one of the things that they do is they're always looking for areas that will give them a little bit of cover, you know, when they're out and about at night. Even at night, one of the things, or probably the biggest things they're worried about, is getting eaten, believe it or not. So one of the things that we have to worry about, birds of prey, or they worry about, is birds of prey and raptors, because there's many of them that are working at night looking to eat them. So one of the things that we do a lot of are cell tower sites. So we deal with the company that does all the weed control and stuff on cell tower sites, but anytime they have rats, they want to, or birds or ants or such, they call us and we go out and take care of them. So this, believe it or not, is a what's called an FCOA cabinet, and this is at the top of the cabinet. Below that it's a cabinet probably about the size of this table, but about this high. And at the top of the cabinet, when we open that lid, we know what's going to be in there is a rat's nest. And generally they will go through and gnaw on cables and such, and that's usually when they get the call when it's actually knocked out a cell tower. So you want to talk about busy work. When they call us and they said it's down, you got to get over there. You know, they might have replaced the cable, but they're worried about it chewing the next day in doing the same thing, you know, because we kind of gotten used to our cell phones and such. So, but anyway, this is a very atypical nest of what we see when we run into those guys. So I don't know how much we'll get through this, but we'll talk a little bit about behaviors and evidences and all this stuff. So some of the identifying characteristics are, that's the common roof rat, large ears, large eyes, that kind of that triangulated head that we see, you know, the Norway rat, it's more blunt. And truthfully, if you were to put a Norway rat and a roof rat next to each other, you'd look at the Norway and say, man, that thing's ugly. I'll just say, you know, when any pet store that you go to that has pet rats in there, they've been bred to take out the gray coloring. You know what kind of rat that is? No, it's a roof rat. So roof rats, they look pretty and such. So this is, you can see the body. You can see they're pretty proportionate. The tail is a little bit longer than the body itself. Got those big O ears to help them hear and such, and that big long tail that helps them navigate. If you chop off a tail of a roof rat, it's not going to live long because it has to have that for climbing as it goes along. So this is a quick little video. You can see it kind of coming around. You can see they're very stealthy. They are neophobic. Anybody know what that means?
Afraid of anything new.
Afraid of new stuff. Yeah. So now some aren't, but for the most part, when you introduce something new, like throw a trap up there or things like that, you know, we've all had that where they won't touch it for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden we get a bunch of catches. But anyway, that's something that will occur. You know, some of their behaviors, they're really good climbers. So it's always about looking where in the world they would get up to where they're getting to. Usually 90% of the time, it's an attic. So an attic is an absolute wonderland for a roof rat. When they look at it, look at all of this sea of insulation. That's all nesting material. And so they've got their pick of anywhere they want to go. So they always have 3 to 5 points of contact. So that's why they are so good at climbing. They'll usually travel along construction lines, but they are also always seeking out shadows when they're outside, because they want to be in those dark areas where they're not being seen. So here's another one. See him crawling along that PVC pipe. They're taking advantage of that. So one of the things with roof rats, one of the number one places that I think we've all experienced them coming in is air conditioning lines. Why do they love that so much? So it is like a jungle gym for them to be able to crawl on this perfect material that doesn't hurt their feet and has such great gripping action, having that foam, and they can just go straight up into that attic and leads them right into there. So they love that. So we all know about the travel runs that they'll establish, and they'll keep repeatedly using them. Sometimes we'll see droppings that are in aggregations in areas, especially in nests. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Those freon lines, I mean, the old story about, well, they got to have water to go outside. And like I tell people, I'm not really sure about that, but they tear the insulation off there, and so the pipes start condensating.
Yep.
So then they have water up in the attic. I'm like, man,
Yep.
they're getting water up there because they're leaking right off of those pipes.
Yep.
So, that's a big deal too. When you hit a nerve on me when you said that, I'm like, man, these freon lines are a problem.
Yep, it's just like taking a glass of ice water outside in July.
Exactly.
What happens to the outside of it?
Yeah.
So they have somehow figured that out.
Yes.
And where they can utilize that condensation if they don't have the water.
Yep.
Well, what's the other big water source that they get up in attics?
Pans.
Yeah, drip pans that aren't working correctly. So also, one of the biggest things that we deal with in those cell tower sites like you saw, when they bring that nesting material in there, it will be absolutely almost like concrete with their droppings. You might think, why in the world would they put their droppings in their nesting area? So it's a marker for them. So they'll continue to urinate on those droppings, and it almost turns them into semen. We have to sit there and soak and scrape, and it's a mess. So it's something that that's a territorial marker for them that they'll do. And of course, we're all familiar with. Some people call it different things. What do y'all call this brown stuff on the pipe?
Rub marks.
Smears.
Rub marks. What else?
Smears.
Smears. Okay. I've heard grease marks. So if you want to know the correct word, that is sebum. Now, I didn't make that up. That was Bobby Corrigan, one of the most famous rodentologists in the world. What's that?
That's the oils.
Yeah, so rodents have sebaceous glands, and the sebaceous glands emit an oil. It gets whipped up by the hair, and it travels along the hairs. And so when it rubs up against something, the oil coming off the hairs rubs on the surfaces that they go across. So that's kind of how all that happens. So it's a great way for us to be able to see it, because when that oil gets on the surface, then you have dirt from the air hitting it. You're going to get these very distinctive marks on there. So some of the evidences, again, the droppings can be in aggregations. They're typically around a 1/2 inch in length. They can vary somewhat. Don't ever go off of color or shape 100% of the time, because I think Daryl, you can probably confirm this. When we were growing up, so to speak, what would they tell us to look for? You'll have the banana shape, the banana shaped droppings.
Half-inch long, pointed on the ends.
Yep, and pointed on the ends. So, and if you can get a rat to cooperate and poop out the right size, that's great, but half the times you don't, So you get a bunch of different looking shaped droppings, and every once in a while you will get some curved banana shaped droppings,
Yeah,
and they don't follow the rules when it comes to color.
If you bite on them and it crumbles in your mouth, that means it's old.
If it's got a nutty flavor.
But if it's soft.
Hold on, we got a new guy here tonight.
We'll show you how to do it.
So, anyway, sometimes, depending on what they're feeding on, there'll be different colors. Like you can see over here, when I went up into the attic and I saw a bunch of white droppings. I don't know what in the world they were eating, but they were all white. So that'll happen sometimes. Of course, we do know they're tapered on the ends, but with Norways, it's pretty distinctive. They're pretty blunt. But I'll tell you one thing that will sometimes make it difficult is if you've got squirrels too, because squirrels have no rules when it comes to their droppings. They'll be small and round like a goat pellet, or they'll be very long, or everything in between. So sometimes you'll have a mixture of those guys. So entry points, we always are sometimes looking up, but sometimes we forget to look down. Just because they are avid climbers doesn't mean that they're never on the ground. They're on the ground a lot, because a lot of times that's where the food is. And they're going to be opportunistic, and if they smell something coming out of that garage, that's going to be a nice opportunity for them to take advantage of those door gaps. Roof returns, as we know, are probably one of their favorites, and if they don't have enough room, they'll make some room. Or sometimes a squirrel will make room, and both the squirrels and the roof rats will use it on top of that. So then sometimes we make our own access points for them, like this in this garage. So AC lines at the scutcheon plates. How many times have you ever seen an AC guy cut these things, perfectly around that? So it's something that's something that we all deal with, where they get through that. So of course, tree limbs in contact with structures, we all know that's just handing them a gateway to get onto the roof and find all those places. Putting bird feeders out there. I don't know about y'all, but when I see a bird feeder, I tell them, yeah, that is a bird feeder and a squirrel feeder, and at night it's a rat feeder. So sometimes that helps, but we all know what that is. So we're big on documentation. It's something that I always encourage people to give your customers as much documentation as possible. One of the things that it just depends on the company, but But conducive conditions are, to me, essential to communicate to your customers. If they have something that's wrong, that's conducive for whatever it might be, you know, we're real good about termites. When we see a stack of firewood up against the house, and you know, we communicate to them, you don't want to do that, especially if you've got a termite warranty with them. You don't want to put that there, because it's like a bridge. It's like you're asking them to be in your house. So it's something that, do the same thing for rats. When it comes to, you know, if you see an open escutcheon plate, or you see the root returns, you know, open, you know, that's, you know, part of being a professional. Being able to tell them things that they don't know, and being able to let them know, hey, you have this problem. Now, whether they're going to fix it or not is, you know, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But being able to communicate that to them, and being able to document it, so if later on, you know, they've got a big problem, it's like, yeah, you know, that little conducive condition that keeps showing up on your inspection report each time we come, it's never gone away, because this never got fixed on that. So, you know, and whenever, I just will tell you, I think that it's important to always document when you go out to do an estimate, because the one thing that I've seen over the years, where companies will come out and they say, okay, $500, I get rid of your rats. But they don't communicate what it is they're going to do. To me, when we go out, I put it all in writing. We put pictures and everything, because I want them to know exactly what I'm going to do. Because if it's a difference between me spending $1,500 and this guy's spending $500, but the difference is they have an 8-page report that they're going to see from me, and with this guy, it's a piece of paper that says $500 for rats. If they pick the $500 guy, then I probably don't want them as a customer, because they don't know what they're getting. They're just looking at a number. They're not looking at a professional company that's offering a professional product. So I'm just telling y'all, you can make yourself stand out differently by you know, giving them something that explains things to them. Now, I've also had that conversation before with, well, aren't you just like giving them a blueprint to do it themselves? Yeah, I am. So, but I also look at it, if that's all they want, then I don't want them as a customer. So, you know, it's a deal that, you know, and just because I give them documentation about them doesn't mean they can do what I do. Doesn't mean that they're going to do the same thing as you. So, you know, it's all about expertise. You know, probably one of the biggest things that bugs me is, you know, we've all had that guy where we go out and give an estimate, and they look and they say, $1,200? Well, I can throw a couple of traps up there. And it's like, you're right, you can. So
Good luck.
And then what are you going to do then? You know, because things never work the way you think they're going to work, right? You know, they never know, you know, just the little tiny things that they miss out on. You know, especially if that same person calls you back because he tried it and couldn't fix it, and he calls you, and you come back and see what they did, and you say, yeah, no wonder.
Now you made it worse.
Yeah, now it's going to cost more, because now you've made my job here. You made all of them trap shots.
Exactly.
So yeah, so it's things like that that have to do it, think about. So, now, one thing that I will tell you, after being in NACOA, in the wildlife side, their standing joke is foam for exclusion work. They look at foam as the biggest joke on the planet. And in every single expo I've been with them, they've got this standing joke about people who use foam. Because foam is quick, easy, and cheap, but ineffective. Because rats can chew right through it. When a customer sees it and they say, okay, there was a hole and now there's not a hole, but they don't know what's going to happen after that.
Just wait a while.
Just wait a while. So and I will say, before I joined NACOA, I was that guy. Oh yeah, I'm using that black foam stuff and it's got metal flakes in it and such. Yeah, it's really good. And now I will say for our cell towers, yeah, we do foam the holes on it because they said we want something temporary. And I said, you want something? I have temporary. It's not good, but I got temporary. And they said that's what we want. And I said, okay, good, because I want to do this 2 or 3 years down. So, but this is how we seal off an escutcheon plate. You can see the lines going up here, big holes and everything. So we use a product called Exclusion Pro. It's made by a company called AAC. They're out of Syracuse, Indiana. Great company. Now, you look at this screen and you say, oh yeah, I can get that at the hardware store or whatever. You cannot. In fact, the only place you can get Exclusion Pro is through AAC. They will not sell it to a member of the public whatsoever. If they ever find you reselling it to anybody, they will never ever sell to you again. You know what I like about that?
That's great.
It's a professional product, and they protect that professional product that you use. So when I go and do an estimate, I don't have to worry about, the other guy that's bidding against me that, is going to use hardware cloth and such.
What's the benefit of the two? What's the benefit?
Okay, Exclusion
Compared to
Pro.
hardware cloth.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
That's what
so
you're saying.
it is probably 20 times stronger than hardware cloth. The other two big differences is this is not galvanized, it's galvannealed. Galvannealed is a penetrating galvanizing process, so it makes it where it never rusts.
But it's more malleable too.
And it's more malleable. So
No hamburger hands? No
Yeah.
scraps
Yeah.
underneath?
I wear leather gloves when I use it, but you can cut it with tin snips. So and then it's powder coated. Now they only have two colors, white and black. You can spray paint it if you want, but we also use color mounting screws with that. But it was a deal when we started doing that. Yes, before that we were using foam, and we'd even pack in that screen cloth stuff and such, and they'd still pull that stuff out. And I thought, well, that's supposed to stop them from going through. I have had them pull it out in such. And I'm not going to name names, but it's happened as in the product. But I was using that very good professional metal cloth stuff, and they were pulling that stuff out.
Forget about steel wool.
Yeah, and forget about steel. Yeah, definitely. So, this is just another example of, this is two different pictures, so it's hard to see from there. This is a big old hole that was in the hardy plank there where the AC line was, and this is where we covered that up. That's with the white Exclusion Pro material there. So, and here's probably one of our big things we deal with. is soffit returns. In that wording, in case you're not familiar with it, it's where the soffit of a gable returns to the roof, so it's a soffit return. So where it meets the asphalt roofing here, so we make a bended piece of the exclusion pro, cut the length here, and then screwed into the decking with the special caulking so it doesn't have any leaks. So if they try to, the reason these are such a big favorite for squirrels and rats is because of they can get in there and get that fulcrum action, hunching their back up against into that corner and gnawing. But they can stand there and just slowly chew those things out. But it won't happen if you've got a good material in that soffit return. Yeah, we also do the fascia board side on those soffit returns too. So trapping, to me the biggest thing when it comes to trapping is just figuring out those travel areas. I mean, it's looking for the signs, putting them in close proximity. You don't have to put them right on there, but get it near it so you can get some scent coming from your bait that you use. I don't care what bait you use. We like Pest because it just seems to, it holds up well in attics with our hot, 130 degree attics and such, but there's lots of materials out there that work very well. I'm kind of old school. I like the old Victor M326 traps, which they've changed the name again. I think it's M9s now. So I've got to figure that out. But anyway, the bait on it, the biggest thing is don't over bait those traps. To me, the best thing is, like with this particular trap, that little well, I want them to get in there and dig into it, where they're going to push that trigger down. Don't just smear a bunch of crap all over it. I have come up and seen, it looks like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter on top of a pallet before. And it's like, you've got to be kidding. They can eat for days or weeks before they're going to push that dumb trigger down because of all the crap on it. So I will say the one thing that I am a big fan of now are ERMs. In case y'all don't know that acronym, electronic remote monitoring. So it was a game changer in the aspect of how we sell a rodent job now. So we do a 30-day rodent procedure. So, but we've done that for a long time. Now I want to tell you the difference between the two. When we started out, we would do the same 30-day rodent monitoring where, let's just go with an atypical, you've got somebody that's got roof rats in the attic. We're going to put up 6 to 12 traps up in the attic, and we're going to put a couple of exterior rodent bait stations outside to knock the populations down there. We're going to seal up those entry points and such, and then we would automatically set up 3 return trips. 3 trips every 1 to 3 days, we're coming back. So my favorite is to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, and then after that, it's all about, well, let's see how many we caught the Monday, Wednesday, Friday trips, and then we'll see how many trips we have to do that. So one of the problems we ran into is, that thing we talked about, neophobic? So if you get one of those neophobic populations, they don't touch the traps for a week. You've just wasted 3 trips.
So then you're making more and more trips. So on average, we were making 7 to 9 trips in that 30-day period. So what we did after that, when we started trying out ERMs on the traps, we told the customer that we are going to do electronic monitoring on all traps. So we'll have real time of whenever we get a catch. We will then come out. I'll know exactly which trap it is. I'll know which one to go to. We'll reset that, and it'll continue to work for you, and we'll come out every time you get a catch. So what happened is our average number of trips of 7 to 9 trips went down to 4. So, the first thing the customer might ask was, well, when are you coming back? And I said, well, when I get a catch. So, but I'm going to be monitoring 24/7 for you. So, and I can even show it to them on the phone. So all my traps are reporting. So whenever I get a catch, I will know it real time. I'm going to call you. I'm going to come out, reset, get that thing out of here, and take care of it for you.
You ever get
So-
any false readings on those things?
Very few, because that thing has to be knocked off the trap for it to go off. So it has an accelerometer in it. So that thing's pretty substantial. We also use Active Sense, if anybody knows those. Dow came out with them. They also work pretty good. But let me go back. So Skyhawk is the one that I use 2 different ones. I use Active Sense because they came out with it first. And then Skyhawk approached me about testing them out. And I liked theirs because I can actually put pictures here too. So if I put a trap right here and take a picture of it, and it'll show it right here. But I can also name it where it is and such. It will tell me, like this is sensor number 4 here, tells me everything about it. I can change the sensor on it. So if it wiggles a little bit, you might want to turn that sensor up where it's not so sensitive and such. So gives you a full report of everything that you're getting. But also the other thing that I was telling you about, the differences before we used ERM, our prices went from average of about $750 for that 30-day procedure to $1,300 to $1,500 now. So
That's pest control.
yeah, so it's something that what I think that we offer now is something professional, something that was completely different to the customer. The one thing that used to, if we didn't get a catch on those first 3 trips, and I came down out of that attic, they're just like, "What? You didn't get them?" And now I get a wow factor every time. I call them, "Hey, I've got a catch," and it's a deal. I have not had one single service that we do on this where they say you're cheating me, or I can't believe I spent that money on it. I have not had one time that's happened. So, but it's all about giving them a good package and being able to manage it in a way that's affordable for everybody on this. So, exteriors, yeah, key placement on where you're going to put your bait stations. Sometimes, like for instance, this one, we put it up on a fence because we kept having this neighbor over here had a composting pile that she was just dumping food on the rats were coming along into my customer, getting up into their pool heater. They kept chewing through water lines, chewing through wiring. Then they get into their outdoor kitchen, and there's droppings all over their beautiful pool or outdoor kitchen cushions and such. And they weren't, a lot of times, not touching my trap because they had this endless supply of food from the neighbor behind it. So never stop looking when it comes to, if you're not getting results with the things that usually work, you need to be looking at things that don't usually happen. So always keep your mind ready for something different to happen. Like this. So you see how effective that rodent bait station is? They're out in the middle of it's all concrete out there, and this is right behind the entry door, and there's a rodent station sitting like that. By the way, that's Lake Tahoe. So it's a grocery store there. So, follow-up inspections hopefully ought to yield a lot of results. This was a house that the man went into a hospital. He was gone for 60 days, and they started coming down into the living space. And this was in the pantry. That was a full bottle of olive oil before he left. So, okay. Well, that concludes it. Any questions? Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming.
So those remote sensors you use, do you have to connect it to the homeowner's internet?
No, it's
You send it into the
it comes with a hub that is cellular based, and then you have the sensors that connect to the hub.
How many sensors can you connect to one hub?
Many as you want.
Really?
Yep. So, in fact, since I'm hooked up here, I'll show you a couple of sites. This is an active sense. So, for instance, like this one is nothing more than a squirrel trap, and it's got a active sense a little different because you can set them to detect movement. It's got a little simple camera that will, if something walks by it, it'll send you an alert. So I want to know when they go out of that excluder. It's a one-way excluder, so they exit and can't go back in. And like this one is all snap traps. And so as you can see on this one, we named them so we'll kind of know where they are. Like, hey, you got a catch over here at the garage behind the brick. But each one of those are connected to the hub, and it reports to the hub whenever we get a detection on that.
So the hub is like a phone line.
Yes, so it's a cellular hub that's always connected to the internet, and whenever a sensor gets triggered, it will send that to the hub that goes to your software.
You buy or lease?
Well, there's a couple of different, all of them that I know of, you purchase, but then there is a monthly fee that goes with that. So, for instance, each hub is going to cost you, I don't know, $10 a month. And then all of them that I use, they use they price it on how many sensors you have active during that month. It might be, $1 or $2 per sensor. So on that. So, and that's why I charge a premium whenever we utilize these devices. You've got things to pay for, and such. And
it's something that, you know, I'm going to the same customers I was going to before and selling them a product that's double what it used to be. So it's not that they won't pay for it, and I don't say that in a braggadocious way. But I'm giving them, to me, a much better product.
Absolutely.
I'm not wasting their time, making them come home to open up the door so I can go up in their attic, and, you know, only to find out, well, there wasn't anything. So I'm wasting their time. You know, people today, I don't know about y'all, but I'm finding less and less people at home, and they don't want to have to come and meet you. But I will tell you, here's the funny thing on the other side of this. They are happy as a lark to come if I call and tell them I have a dead rat in your attic. So if they know there's a dead rat up there, so anyway, that was quite a change that we went through to see the differences between that. So, I'll just say, you know, not everybody is set up to do something like that, but to me, I think any of us can be doing that if you think that's a good way to go.
One thing I might mention is that roof rats prefer fruits, vegetables, and grain. If you're gonna bait, don't use meat and stuff like that. They are frugivorous. They love fruits and vegetables and things like that. So,
Yeah, so, they also like chocolate too, so, yeah. But anyway, if anybody has, has any more questions, or if you want to get started with it, you've got questions, I'll give you a card, call me anytime. I'll help walk you through it. So, because I know what it's like to go through this.
Why are you using two different systems, Active Sense and Skyhawk? What's the...
Because years before, I was in the beta testing for Active Sense.
Okay.
Since I was already a Dow customer as a Centricon user, they kind of know I'm very techie. I love technology, and so whenever they were starting this, they chose me to go to be a part of that group, and so I started using that. It wasn't later until when I joined the COA, that ActiveSense will not allow their systems to be used for wildlife, by the way. So if you do wildlife and pest control, I would probably recommend not using ActiveSense because they don't allow you to use theirs for wildlife. Where Skyhawk, you can use it for either. So, but that's kind of how it started. Skyhawk is kind of new in the aspect they've only been out about 3 or 4 years, and in fact, the system I have is a beta model. The one thing I keep telling, my batteries are burning down too quick, and they said, well, it's because your firmware is so old, you need to update it. But biggest difference, I'll say, ActiveSense has an internal battery inside their sensors that cannot be changed out or charged. So when that thing finally dies, it takes about 2 years. You throw it in the trash. So it's like $30. Last year I threw away $600 worth of sensors. So where Skyhawks, I will say, the great thing about it, they made it where it's all AA batteries.
Okay.
So I will say when you're asking which one's better, each one of them have something good about it. Skyhawk is great. It's durable. It's also wireless in the aspect I don't have the hubs on Active Sense have to be plugged in somewhere.
Okay.
Skyhawks are completely wireless, they're battery operated. It's kind of a pain sometimes with Active Sense, especially you want to plug the thing in the attic, but you don't have to. But I've got to plug it somewhere where I can retrieve it, and when it comes to when you're finishing, being able to access it and such, and you don't really want to plug it outside.
Right.
Gotta be
So-
within range.
Yeah, well, the range isn't so much a problem. It's just I don't like putting my equipment out. That's a $300 hub. Yeah, that's $300 sitting there. And it's same if I put it inside. $300 sitting right there, and I don't want some kid to drop something on it, or somebody not knowing that it's something that's being used. And even though I make them sign that you're not going to damage my equipment, and you're going to have to pay for it. I hadn't had to use that yet, but I don't want to ever have to use that. So yeah. But with the Skyhawk, I can put those anywhere. So, and they're usually right up there by my sensors.
Any
So-
cellular issues with it?
No,
Ever-
not one. No, they all use 3G, which is a real low band. And,
It's only when the cell tower goes out.
Yeah. Yeah. Gets his revenge. Yeah, it's breaking his buddies out. So, yeah. But they never had an issue with that. So, and every one of them will tell you, the strength on them. So, yeah, I get better signal out of them stupid hubs than I do on my cell phone. Wow. Half the time, which annoys me. But anyway.
Good program.
Okay.
All right, thank you,
All right.
Jackie.
Thank you, guys.